Hey friends. So I am starting another Yarn Snob reviews video today. I'm actually very excited about this. I went to Joann's with my pup this morning because I needed to get some spray paint for a headboard that I was spray painting. And while I was there, I knew I wanted to get some yarn. Initially, I wanted to get some yarn for a blanket tutorial that I want to make, but I didn't find what I was looking for. And ignore the spray paint on my hands. I just finished painting. But I didn't find what I was looking for, but I did find something that intrigued me enough to want to purchase it and make this video. So that is this yarn here. It's by Lion brand, and I haven't gone to Joann fabric in so long. Is there paint on my head? Okay, let's ignore that. Anyways, I haven't gone to Joann fabric in so long, so I didn't really know what was out there, what's new, what's trendy. So I had no idea that Lion brand yarn was doing like a Re-Spun line. So they had a bunch of yarns that were like recycled. I assume that's what the Re-Spun means because it said like 100% recycled and then whatever it was. So I got the 100% recycled polyester, and I've never knit with polyester before. This is the yarn. This is what it looks like. Super cute packaging, looks very eco-friendly. The yarn itself is super soft and like silky. It feels pretty silky. Now it is made of plastic. So while it feels really nice, I'm a little interested to see how it holds up. It already feels like it's gonna pill a lot. If you guys can see, there's kind of like a halo, but it's not a nice halo. It's not like a mohair or Surrey alpaca halo. It's definitely like this shit is gonna pill. I did pick a pattern off of Ravelry. I found a free sweater pattern that I was like, okay, this looks like it'll fit this yarn nicely. So I believe the pattern is a DK weight yarn. This says it's a weight 4 worsted weight yarn. I do, however, feel like just initially feeling the yarn that it is more of a DK. I even think you could get away with a sport weight yarn. It's pretty thin in my opinion. So I looked for patterns that were sport, DK, and worsted because I figured I could get gauged with any of those using, you know, whatever I determined was best. So I picked out the pattern I'm going to do, and I'm excited to cast on. This yarn was $8.99, but it was on sale at Joann's today for $2.25 off. So I got 2 skeins because this has 658 yards. So I have over 1,200 yards to use, which is plenty to make a sweater for my size. So a very affordable sweater. If you bought it full price, $9 each, $18 without tax. So I think that's very affordable, but I can already tell, like, I don't think it's gonna hold up as well as like the Red Heart Super Saver that I used last time, which is kind of crazy to say because this is much more expensive than Red Heart Super Saver. However, you do get a ton more yardage, but I don't know how I feel about how this is gonna hold up. It does say that you can machine wash it on a gentle cycle and tumble dry low. So that is what we're gonna do to block it. And I am gonna get started. It recommends using a 5mm. I am, of course, gonna follow the pattern that I am choosing to use. Again, I don't necessarily feel like this is a worsted weight yarn. That's just me. The colorway that I got, in case you guys are wondering, is Hazelwood. It's kind of like a mushroomy color. It definitely has a purple tinge to it, but it gives off like mushroom vibes. I was gonna get another, like 2 different color skeins and do a colorwork sweater, but I didn't know how colorwork would hold up. Plus the sweater I had in mind that I was going to knit, I actually really want to wear, and just based on first initial thoughts of this, I don't want to knit that sweater with this yarn. So right off the bat, I don't have great feelings about it. I'm excited to use it because it does feel soft, but it feels soft in a way where it feels like plastic. If you guys have ever used Lion brand Heartland yarn, it's an acrylic yarn that they have. I personally enjoy it. It feels like that, but it feels more pilly than that, which is kind of crazy because that yarn is a little bit pilly. So we'll see what happens. First initial thoughts, like I said, up in the air. I'm excited to use it, but we'll see. I did just want to read this. It says, reduce, reuse. This yarn is made from recycled plastic, keeping bottles and other waste out of the oceans and landfills. And I'm excited about that. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on, and I'll give you my thoughts throughout. Hey guys, so as you can tell, I've been knitting and I have some thoughts that I want to quickly put into the video before I forget. As I said, this is my first time working with polyester. I'm pretty sure I did make this top a couple years back called the Poof Tee, and it kind of reminds me of this yarn. The yarns are very different. The yarn I used for that was a Michaels yarn. I'm pretty sure it was like loops and thread, or it might have been like burnout, but it was like a fuzzy one. I'll put a picture on the screen. And that could have been polyester because it's kind of giving me the same vibe. The spin of this yarn is pretty similar to the spin of that yarn. And while that yarn is fuzzy, this yarn has a fuzzy quality of its own as well. I know I said before that it looks like it's already starting to get pilly, but honestly, I think that it just might be the halo that polyester gives off. I don't think I will be for certain until I wear this top a little bit and see if it starts balling up into little pills, or if this is just the quality of the yarn or of the fiber. Also, I did want to mention that it kind of reminds me of when I knit with linen. So it's not as harsh on your hands as linen is, but it kind of gives you that worn quality. Because I know whenever I've knit with linen in the past, as you work with it, it pills, if you will. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's like pilling as if when you use wool and it like balls up and just kind of sticks on there. It's more of like the fibers are just getting worn and it gives you a bit of a halo. I don't know how to describe it, but if you've ever knit with linen or even cotton, like a softer cotton, you would probably understand what I'm trying to say. Another thing I want to quickly mention before my phone dies here is that I have noticed that I was having a harder time getting my German short rows tight. So there are some gaps. I don't have this problem whenever I do German short rows with wool. I used to when I first started knitting, but as I've understood what a short row is and how it works, I've gotten better at not having gaps like this. So I think it is just the quality of this fiber is making it more visible or difficult to get that tighter stitch. And then you'll notice with my make lefts here, these stitches are make lefts. They are a lot more obvious than I would say I would get with wool. Now, doing a make left, you're still going to notice the stitch even in wool, and you'll still kind of see this design. But when you get close, I feel like you can really tell. Kind of like the same thing with the German short row. Like, it's just more obvious, though, with the extra stitch there. And then I just feel like it's just a little bit more in your face with the synthetic fiber of the polyester. Whereas in wool, I feel like it's easier to hide. But those are just the things that I've noticed so far. The yarn has been pretty consistent. It is pretty splitty, so it's not been the easiest to work with if I'm not paying as close attention. I have had to drop back and fix a couple of stitches due to I had split the stitch and there was only like one strand of the fiber on my needle or making the stitch. So that is something to be cautious of as well, because it's not as tight of a spin as some of the other synthetic fibers I've used. This is definitely a looser spin. So those are just the notes I have so far. I'm actually kind of enjoying it. It's very stretchy. It's got a lot of give to it when you're knitting with it. So it definitely doesn't feel hard on my hands or anything. There are just a lot of stitches on my needles. But anyways, that's all I've had to say so far. I am going to continue working on this and I will update you guys as I come to more thoughts. Update. I always do these updates at night, so the lighting, not great. So this is not the true color of it. But I will say that I figured you guys might want to look at my face rather than knitting while I talk about this, because it's not necessarily pertaining to the yarn. But I am realizing that I really am enjoying doing the affordable yarn videos, because I feel like, especially when I pair them with like a larger project such as a garment, like this sweater, and the last one was a sweater as well, it's forcing me to use the yarn for a longer period of time. And in doing so, it's like changing my opinion. Like every day that I knit on it, it's changing my opinion. Or if I sit it down for a couple days and I go back to it, I'm like, wow, I actually kind of like the way this feels. I'm not getting too invested into just like the basic ideas of just doing a swatch to review the yarn. So I'm really enjoying how it's kind of making me, and this is kind of just my personality already, but I'm finding that I'm trying to pull out the things that I really like about it and appreciate about it more than the things that are negative about it. And honestly, I think that it's kind of boiling down to the idea that affordable yarn can't be good and enough to make a sweater. And I think I fell into that pattern as well. And not just a sweater, but like anything in general. But I feel like people like to invest money into nicer yarns to knit sweaters. And I love that. And I do love knitting with wools, and I love all the yarn that I have in my stash and everything that I've knit previously. But I think I've lost the idea that affordable yarns can be quality as well. Now, it may not be the softest or most luxury item that you're ever gonna make, but if you buy store-bought clothing at like a general store, not like one of those fancy designer stores, you're gonna get acrylics and cottons and things like that. And I think it's important to note that you can still knit with those materials as well. You can knit an affordable sweater and you can wear it for probably just as long as a wool sweater, if not longer. And you can throw it in your washing machine and your dryer, and you don't have to feel guilty about wearing it out over and over again and getting pills in it if it gets a hole in it because you spent $12 to make a sweater. And I think that this is really changing my mindset, which is kind of exciting. And I hope that through these videos, you guys like maybe take a step back and evaluate how you're choosing to knit your sweaters. And I'm not saying I'm never gonna knit with wool again. I'm absolutely gonna knit with wool again. I have so much of my stash. I'm gonna buy wool again. Once I work through my stash, I'm gonna be able to buy new yarns. Just for myself, I personally decided that I'm not gonna buy any yarns until I work through my stash because I have a rather large stash, which I'm so grateful for. But I am allowing myself to purchase like big box store yarns, which I'm excited to try for you guys. This is turning into something different than a yarn review. Still really enjoying the yarn, by the way. I mean, obviously it has a lot of qualities of any yarn, not just acrylic yarns or polyester in this case, or it also is wool. Like there are little imperfections in it, like little extra fuzz balls or something, and the spin on it's a little looser than other yarns, and it definitely has its own qualities. But overall, is it the softest sweater ever? No. But I think the idea of soft kind of gets lost a little bit as well. Like with wool, yes, it's soft. Not all wool, some is scratchy, but a superwash wool is soft. But at the same time, it still has a little something to it. And I think like as a whole, this is soft. It's not scratchy, it's not pokey or anything. It's soft, but it's not like silk, you know? So I think the idea of softness in yarns and sweaters is kind of up to interpretation because it is soft, but it's not silky and smooth, and you obviously can tell a quality difference in a synthetic material versus a natural material or a wool material. So I'm just gonna put that out there. I am really enjoying the project, and just while I'm knitting with it, I wanted to capture this moment of how I'm feeling about knitting with a store-bought yarn again, a machine manufactured yarn. I'm quite enjoying it, and it's kind of turning over a new leaf for me, and I can't wait to see what 2023 has to bring down the affordable yarn hole. So yeah. So I had to pop on here and say, because it was another random thought while I was working, I think the reason that, for me, commercial yarns kind of get a bad rap is because I kind of associate them with projects that aren't why I like to knit and crochet. So like doilies or, you know, like dishcloths that your grandma made and stuff like that. I think I associate it with more of like the old school or traditional, if you will, knitting and crocheting. And that's not really what drew me to knitting and crocheting. So I bring that up because as I'm working on this project, I'm like, okay, I really, really enjoyed this pattern. I spent hours and hours searching for the pattern for this project because I like to take a lot of things into consideration. So I purposely chose this pattern because it has this ribbing on the side, this ribbing detail, and I wanted to see how the definition would play in this yarn, because in my head, feeling the yarn and what I know about yarns and just over the years learning what gives good definition in a pattern, I really didn't feel like this yarn have a good definition. So I didn't want to choose a cable pattern, I considered, but as I thought about it, I was like, I just don't think I'm gonna get the oomph that I would want a cable to get. But I also wanted to see if I could get good definition, since I had the thought in my head as I was feeling it at the store and as I brought it home and as I was searching for the pattern. I just considered the yarn and the qualities of the yarn, and I didn't think it was going to have good definition. So I wanted to test that factor out so I could let you guys know. And it does have a little definition, but I don't think it's giving me like great definition. I'm glad I didn't choose cables. If I was going to put so much time into something, I'd want them to really pop. And I don't think that this really pops. I think it kind of is a subtle kind of flat yarn, if you will. And I think that has to do with the spin. It's a very loose spin. So I'm glad that I took the time choosing this pattern. Yeah, and that just wraps back around to my main point of this is I think pairing any kind of yarn with the right project is going to make the qualities of the yarn that you may have not enjoyed if you were doing a pattern you didn't like, and it's going to change them, and you're going to think of more of the qualities that you do like about it because you're knitting something that you're enjoying, that you're going to use and love when it's all done, or at least take a photo of. And I think that is really, really important when choosing what you're knitting, and making something that you like is going to be more enjoyable than making something that you don't like. And take that from me as somebody who's been doing this for quite some time now, going on 10 years. And just, yeah, I don't know. My point here is just make sure you're choosing patterns that you love. And I think that no matter what yarn you're using, if you're enjoying the project, you're probably going to enjoy the yarn more than if you were going to make something with a yarn you didn't really get excited about using and making something you're not excited to be making. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to the project. Hey guys, so I have finished my sweater, and as you can see, it is before I blocked it. So I wanted to show you the before blocking. As you can see, it's like bunching up here in the center. That also could just be a byproduct of me making a size that's too big for a yoke sweater, but I don't foresee that this yarn is going to grow much. So this is where it's sitting and how it's like bubbling all around. But I do foresee that the stitches are going to loosen up as per usual with blocking, and it's going to relax and drape a little bit better. At least that's what I'm hoping for. It does feel a little bit itchy. I don't know if it's like itchy, it's like pokey. You can definitely feel like the harder fibers. So like if you were to use a wool yarn opposed to like the synthetic yarn, you would get that from like the staple of the yarn, like the long fibers or even the hay in it. And I'm kind of feeling that on my chest area a little bit. So I'm hoping with blocking, maybe that will soften up a little bit as well. But overall, the sweater is done, so I'm happy about that. The yarn was nice to knit with. I do appreciate the way that it felt to knit with. It was like stretchy, and I like the way it knit up, but I don't know that I'm going to love wearing it. But hopefully blocking it will change my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw it in the washing machine and the dryer on low heat settings. So we will see how this holds up in the washing machine. Hopefully well, because I put a lot of time into it, but shall it not hold up well? I guess I didn't invest a whole lot of money, just time. So I can't wait to see what happens with this yarn, and we'll come back whenever it's all dry. All right, guys, I just pulled the sweater out of the dryer. Like I said, I washed with cold water and dried with no heat, and I am very disappointed in how it looks the exact same. It did not loosen up at all. If anything, it shrunk a little bit. And like I said, I didn't use heat at all. I've never had a problem with like acrylic or anything shrinking. I'm just gonna come out and say I think I give this yarn like a 2 out of 5 or whatever my rating was in the last system. Like, it's not great. It's affordable and you get a lot for your money, but I can already tell it's irritating me. And this neckline is not even close or anything. And just if you wanted something that was like more structured, maybe this yarn would be a good option for you. But it didn't loosen up at all, like the stitches. It's still very stiff, as you can tell. And honestly, I prefer the Red Heart Super Saver that I reviewed in my last Yarn Snobs video. I actually have it right here. I can show you how synthetic fibers can loosen up because this has really nice drape, whereas this is not draping at all. And as soon as I pulled it out of the dryer, the hem was still rolled up. I've never had that happen after blocking an item. So definitely don't think that I recommend the Lion brand reuse line, or at least the polyester one that I tested here. And I can tell that it shrank just based on the sleeves. Like, they go so much shorter now. So I am kind of bummed because, like I said, I did put a lot of time and energy into knitting this piece. But again, I was doing it for the sake of this video. I'm always cautious going in and optimistic, hoping that a piece will work out when I'm reviewing a yarn that I've never used before, especially a more affordable yarn. And in this case, it just didn't work out for me. The fibers itself, I mean, if you guys can tell, it already looks very worn in. And I can say for a fact, like, the bunching right here is just due to me making a yoke size that was probably too big for me. And who's to say I won't actually wear this sweater, like, going out, or I don't know, like, maybe just to clean up the house or something, because it's not terrible, but I don't like the way that the stitches didn't relax and everything feels like poofy. Not a fan of that. I really wished that it would have blocked a little better and changed my mind a little bit more. And I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 for the simple fact that they had a great color selection. I was really into that. I love that the idea behind it being reused yarn, and it's affordable. I don't know what this yarn would be good for because, like I said, it is actually kind of scratchy, and I can feel it irritating my chest as I speak, so I'm kind of anxious to get it off. But honestly, I couldn't tell you what it would be good for. I honestly, if you're gonna go for a affordable yarn, if it were between this or Red Heart Super Saver, go for the Red Heart Super Saver. When you wash Red Heart Super Saver, it is so soft, whereas this one maintained all of the qualities before blocking. I don't think the piece changed at all. If anything, it shrunk just a tiny bit, but I personally don't believe that this is the best affordable yarn out there for making a sweater in particular like I did. However, if you are on the market for a yarn that maintains exactly how it was when you knit it after you wash it, I mean, this is machine washable. It does look a little bit more worn after I washed it, and I do think that it's going to pill. However, it did look worn as I knit it as well. I think I mentioned that throughout the video. So my personal take on this yarn is probably would not purchase again. I wouldn't recommend it to any of my friends that were just trying to get into knitting or crocheting as their first option. There are more affordable yarns out there that we will test eventually. And if you have any ideas of what you want me to test, leave a comment down below. But in my opinion, my personal opinion, you may love this yarn. I don't think that this is the one personally for knitting a garment with. Maybe a scratchy blanket or something of the sort for your dog. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this review, I suppose. And if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Again, leave any yarn suggestions that you want me to test next down below, and subscribe to my channel for more random content. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.